Good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of our impressive webinar series, Proactive Marketing in Tough Times, where we open a discussion on how we navigate our new normal. I'm Dora. I'm the head of client services here at Impressive, co-hosting with Mark, who is the head of delivery here. Hey, Mark, how you going? What are we talking about
thanks.
today?
How is everyone?
Yeah, good. Sorry, there was a little bit of a lag.
So for the next 5, good. Yeah, having some internet challenges because the whole of Australia is on it, I guess. So for the next 45 minutes, we just want to have a kind of a transparent discussion between marketers, business owners, and decision makers that will ultimately help our attendees uncover some strategies and tactics that might enable businesses to pivot during this uncertain time. What I'm really excited about today is that we have 2 guest speakers joining the conversation. So first of all, I'd like to introduce you to Grant. Grant is an entrepreneur and marketing communications expert with years of backed experience. He's the CEO of Concept Tape, which is an Australian restaurant franchisee or franchisor, established in 1996, which now has over 130 franchises across Australia. Some of the brands are very recognizable, trading under brands like Noodle Box, Wok in the Box, Patty Smith's, and Supreme Leader. So Grant, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, Grant. And we also, I'd like to introduce Karine. Hi, Karine. Karine is a Pilates and Barre instructor and the co-owner of a business called Bump Health and Fitness. Before Karine made the move to join the fitness industry, she worked for media agency giant OMD for over 12 years. And she's won many accolades, including Media Federation Awards, and she was personally named as one of Ad News top 40 under 40 at age 27. And after the birth of her 3rd child 5 years ago, Karine turned her passion for Pilates into her full-time career. And 12 months ago, she joined the team at Bump Health as director and co-owner. So welcome. Hello, Karine.
Thanks, Dora. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you both for giving us your time today and sharing your stories. I'm mindful that Grant has a hard cutoff, so we'll probably start there. So I guess it would be good for you if you could just give us a little bit of insight as to your business model and I guess how you've been impacted in this time.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I'll go to tell me when you want me to throw to the presentation, but before I do that, I guess we had our COVID-19 moment 2 years ago. So the insight that I can give today is how we handled that. So it's not really that we're handling it now. Our business is good at the moment, but it's because of the things that we did probably at least a year ago when we had our COVID-19 moment. And that, of course, we're in the restaurant business and it was all about home delivery. So Uber Eats, Menulog, Deliveroo, Dora, all of those arrived, and we saw our sales start drifting pretty quickly to home delivery, and we weren't set up for it. So we had to change our business model. So I'm happy to share the journey that we did and the lessons learned from that when you want me to.
Well, it's good. I mean, you mentioned that you pulled some content together, so happy for you to dive into that now if you'd like to present. Maybe if you share your screen. Okay.
So if you thought that death by PowerPoint was something you didn't have to do when you're working from home, I've got bad news for you. So here's a little something that I prepared yesterday for you. So I'll just go to share screen. Hopefully this will work. Share. Can you see that?
We can.
Yes.
All right. Perfect. Let's minimize that. So pivoting your business, I think this was the title of this today. So I'll take you through how we had to pivot our business. A little bit about us. We're a privately owned business, founded 23 years ago, 150 franchises in 5 states. So if anyone here is from New South Wales and you don't know about us, that's fine because we're not there. Our business is Noodle Box, which is Asian, Patty Smith's, which is premium burgers, Double Dragon dumplings, that's self-explanatory. Wok in a Box is similar to Noodle Box, Supreme Leader Chicken, and Supreme Noodles. So they're the brands we trade under at the moment in all states apart from New South Wales. So as I mentioned, our the Black Swan theory states that a Black Swan event is a low probability, high impact event that's impossible to forecast or predict. So I think that's a pretty good explanation of COVID-19. Whilst, some might have seen it happening in China, I don't think anyone foresaw what was going to happen here in Australia and the impact, So our Black Swan COVID-19 moment actually came 2 years ago. UBS Investment Bank published a famous article called "Is the Kitchen Dead?" This was in 18th June 2018, where they estimate that the global online food ordering market could grow more than tenfold over the next 10 years, from 35 billion back in 2018 to 365 billion by 2030. So just stop, pause, think about that. All restaurants were used to pretty much having people come, sit down, eat a meal, and some of them would take away a meal. But that was about 10% of our business was takeaway. The rest was sitting down in the restaurant. And then, UBS said, well, that's going to change. So we had to move quickly. The belief that we have as a business, it's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the ones most responsive to change. So that's a quote by Darwin. I think his theory has been proven, although there might be some religious people who challenge it. But and we certainly believe that this is concept 8, and this is hanging up in our office just to remind everyone that the most responsive to change are the ones that are going to survive. And, all of you, I'm sure, have got this moment now. And, you're going to have to change because things are different. So I've got 10 steps that we went through as a business, and I thought I'll just share with you the 10 steps. Hopefully there's some learnings here and on the steps. So first thing we did was, identify our vision. So we just said, what do you want, for you? What do you want your business to look like in a month or 6 months or a year? You determine your time frame. For us, we had to move from 90% dine-in and takeaway to 50% home delivery within 3 years. That was our target. Well, when I said not much has changed, well, we've actually reached that target now. We're doing more than 50% home delivery. But, thank God we sort of set up for it. So that's, I think every business out there should have a clear idea of, what their vision of their business looks like, either post-COVID-19 or, next week. Step 2 is define your purpose. So, we sat down here and worked out pretty quickly that our purpose as a business, as a franchisor, was to enable the aspirations and dreams of our franchise partners. Now, if we just do that, if all of our effort, each day from all the team is to look after our franchise partners and make sure they're making money, then it's good business sense to us as well, because we will make money as well and we'll have a successful business. So it's not that we're just an incredibly nice people over here, it just makes good business sense. So, I can't tell you obviously what your purpose should be. You need to work that out yourself, but that's ours. And I can tell you that every major decision from the board, the executive team, our business development managers, everyone that works at Concept 8, they can recite this. I've been around some companies where they can't tell you what the values are, the purpose, the mission, the vision, but everyone at this organisation knows what that is. And that shapes our decision making. So I'd encourage you to define your purpose and then make your decisions once you've got your vision set down. Step 3 was assemble a team to achieve the vision. So there's some people when I arrived 2.5 years ago, there's some people that didn't share the vision, didn't buy into the purpose. And as the great man says, you get everyone on the bus in the right seats. So hopefully this will work.
Some people like to climb mountains. I like to build planes in the air. I grew up wanting to be on a wing, wanting to be up this high. Sometimes the temperature up at altitude will reach 60 below. It's brisk, it's refreshing. You never know what you're going to come across up here. Canadian geese, mallards, owls. These people back here, that's why I come to work. That's why I build airplanes in the sky.
We're not just building a plane here. We're building a dream.
I love this job. I do a lot of things up here. When I look over there and I see that little kid, I look in his eyes, that's all the thanks I need.
EDS, managing the complexities of the digital economy.
So if you have to change quickly, you need a team of people around you that buy into that. So we had to change our company completely, and we had to do it really quickly. I didn't have time for people we didn't have time for people that wanted to do things the old way. And in assembling the team to achieve our vision, our criteria for recruitment were people that love change. And that video we show to every new recruit and say, if this makes sense to you, then this probably is the company for you. If it doesn't, then it probably isn't. People who can work in the grey zone, so work with ambiguity. Sometimes things aren't black or white. You don't have all the right information all the time. You just have to go with the information you've got. Certainly people who love to execute. So, we've got another saying here, act fast, fail fast. We'd rather do something and get it wrong than do nothing. Another saying we have around here is perfection is the enemy of great. We'd much rather do 100 things 90% right. We think that's better than doing 50 things done 100%. And also it's important as a leader to give the team permission to fail. It's probably fail once or twice, but we don't want to keep repeating errors, obviously. But if you're moving quickly, which I'm sure all of you are doing at the moment, you just need to be aware that you're going to make some mistakes, and we certainly did. We made some clangers as we tried to change the business. And I guess at the end of the day, it's around people who fit your culture. So that's us. It's probably not relevant to anyone on this call, but I'd encourage you to insert your business here and map out everything you do in your business and say, is this fit for purpose in the new world? Stay focused. The main thing is to keep the main thing. I love this quote from Stephen Covey. It's great when you're having planning meetings and blue skying, but there's a reason that your business was successful in the first place. And we didn't suddenly wake up and say, okay, well, if it's in home delivery, let's start up a home delivery company. That's not our business. We're not in the distribution business. I know nothing about hiring couriers and running a logistics company. We know a lot about food, and so we just doubled down on the food side of our business. It's probably, if you make mattresses, don't decide to get into food delivery, into restaurants, just because QSR is going quite well at the moment. Step 6, you've all seen this, I'm sure, but decide what matters. If you don't have much time, don't spend it on the thankless tasks. We decided pretty quickly what was going to give us a big impact, what was low in effort and cost, and spend our time on the high impact, low cost, low effort tasks. Step 7, manage the event. If you just write one thing down, I'd write this down, go to Harvard Business Review and download this article, 4 behaviours that help leaders manage a crisis. It's one of the best articles I've read around this topic, and it maps out the 4 behaviours that you need. Strategy, this is sounding like a lecture, sorry, but the part in red is the one that I often see that people miss when I used to consult. And that, where are we? That's the vision thing. Where do you want to be? Your end goal. How do we get there? But explore all the alternatives and explore them well, and don't jump to the first alternative or the cheapest alternative or the explore all. Then obviously pick the right one for you. And this is difficult, but we certainly went for growth. We believe here that you cannot cut your way to growth, and we looked at the expenses and said, well, is that going to lead to growth? Yes, then keep it or increase it. If the answer was no, then probably get rid of it. Also do a quick audit. We did an audit of the team, who's needed to grow the business and keep them, and if they don't, then maybe have another chat. And definitely don't cut marketing costs. We've increased our marketing now this month massively. We don't talk about how much, but massively increased our marketing. And, at the moment we're growing at about 10%. And lastly, imagination. Those that shape and benefit the future will be those that can imagine it. Don't get constrained just by cutting costs. And the last thing, all things must pass. Great George Harrison. It'll all be over sooner, I hope, than later. So I'd encourage everyone to stay positive. There you go. That's it.
That was awesome, Grant. Thank you very much. I guess it'd be interesting if any of our attendees have any questions that they'd like to ask. Please just upload them into the Q&A and we'll pick some out to ask. But while we're waiting on that, I'd be interested to know if you've seen any other examples of brands who you feel have pivoted quite strongly in this time, and anything that you would like to kind of highlight from their efforts.
Not really. I've pretty much, we've been working around the clock on our business and our franchise partners and helping them. But I would just query businesses moving away from their core business in these times. I think now's the time to do what you do really, really well, if you can. So, I've observed in our market, high-end restaurants trying to suddenly do home delivery. Well, it took us 6 months to work it out and to re-engineer our business. I'm not sure that you can do it in 6 weeks or 2 weeks. And I've noticed that some companies are trying to do set up their own distribution, their own couriers and drivers. Well, we won't be doing that. Again, we'd rather work, I'd rather work with a company that already has the distribution and shape my business around that than try and do distribution. We did on the, Bush maths tells us that we can't do it efficiently.
Can I ask there, just with relation to you talking about the way different businesses are responding by, you said high-end restaurants going into delivery, which you're not recommending. Does that have something to do with the size of your business and your ability to pivot quickly or respond quickly?
No, it's more to do with, just one of our fundamental beliefs, the main things to keep the main thing. What we do better than most is, we cook food and we distribute it. We're set up to do that. And so it's easier for us to change the way we did it to make sure that we can use Uber Eats and the home delivery companies and still make money. And I believe you can if you're prepared to re-engineer your business to do that.
Yeah. Hey, I haven't got a question at the moment. I do have a question actually, and I've also got a comment from Martha. She says, "Thank you for a great presentation, Grant." And she says, "Thank you again. Collaborations are key in these times." Just a comment there. And again, Pete. I've got Pete Nichols. Great presentation, Grant. I'm not sure if you can see these questions, Mark, so I think I'll just go through them. How involved were your suppliers in helping to plan and execute your pivot?
Oh, yeah, that's a... I actually just wrote down some random thoughts here yesterday. One of the things that I did a week ago, which I'd encourage everyone to do, is sat down and wrote a nice email to all of our suppliers, thanking them for their support in this time. And so, you know, we have Schweppes and we have our packaging suppliers and our food distribution, because, you know, the temptation is to turn inward and just focus upon you and your business and how you're feeling. But, you know, our suppliers have been just amazing. And so I just wrote a nice letter, and the response was fantastic. You know, I know that with some of them, they pushed it onto the organisation and sent it to everyone in the organisation, just saying, "Hey, you know, we're doing a good thing." And it went along the lines of, you know, on behalf of our franchise partners, our 150 franchise partners, our 800 staff that work for them, and the executive team and our shareholders, thank you, and thank everyone in the organisation for doing, you know, because they've got challenges as well. You know, some of them greater than the challenge I face, quite frankly. So that's a good thing to do.
Yeah, I think it's even, I mean, you're saying, you know, you can extend from the supply conversation to even your internal staff conversation, and how the intensity of the relationship has grown for me. Even though we are physically remote, I've noticed how much closer we are and how much more we're collaborating with the people that we're working together with day to day, where previously we may have not spoken to each other so much in the office, but now we're just all working so hard to get through this together. So I think it's a comment that applies to overall relationships. So thanks for that. We've got one more from Don Hesh. Can we get the slides? I'll leave that to you to decide, Grant, if you wanted to share the slides. If we do, we'll let you know at the end.
I'll just do a quick edit and then I'll pass them on.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I guess just keeping that conversation around, you know, you discussed how the article came out in UPS and how you essentially had to plan out a long-term vision. So you had to change the whole dynamic of the business, but it was a longer-term vision. I guess a lot of businesses in this time are having to be a bit more reactive. So what are your thoughts on the importance of being able to iterate their plans now to still try and align with that longer-term vision?
Iterate, so you just dropped out there, iterate.
Yeah, they're really reactive plans they need to make now in such an uncertain time. How important is it to still try and align that to the longer term vision?
Well, I don't want to risk just repeating myself, but, you know, firstly, a vision of what your business looks like long term is critical. So this is a short term event that will come and go, you know, so who knows how long that will last, but you still, you know, in a year's time, hopefully, you know, your vision will still be your vision. So what I would advocate is, you know, change the vision for the short term, next week, next month, next 3 months, but don't stray too far away from the core. There's something, you know, everyone on this call, I assume, has had a successful business beforehand. So there's something you were doing that was right. And it's about adapting that business for today without changing it completely, you know. So, and going back to your purpose, and the reason why a purpose is such a good thing to do is it helps in the decision making. You know, am I straying from my purpose? And I'd put it to most people that if you're straying from your purpose, that's probably a bad decision. It's probably even the short term or the long term. It's a bad decision to be making. And you know, a lot of us or everyone, you know, the decisions we're making today are obviously critical. You know, the decisions we made a year ago. We had the good fortune just to be able to tweak them over the last 12 months. So a lot of people on this call probably don't have that. You know, they're going to have to move a lot quicker. But I think the fundamentals still always apply. Did that answer?
Over to you, Mark.
Sorry, no, go for it.
That's okay. Well, I'm mindful that Grant has to get onto his next call in 2 minutes. There's one more comment here or question again from Martha. Is the pivot that Grant has made with the business, okay, the pivots that you've made, are they permanent changes or just to adapt to the current climate? I mean, I think we saw that at the start of your presentation. These are decisions that you had made previously, and it was fortunate that you've been put in a good position because of those early decisions that were made 2 years ago. Is that correct?
Yeah, you know, we're not changing anything. Our business is great at the moment. You know, fortunately for us and our franchise partners, the decisions that we made and the execution that we did is you know, we call it, you know, that our business is now corona proof. But you know, we got a free kick too. You know, the government didn't shut us down, so it's easy for us to be you know, overly positive because, you know, we're still allowed to trade. The only thing that really changed for us was our customers weren't allowed to come into the restaurant anymore and sit down. So we've made changes. We had to, you know, make some changes for that. But the main change that we did was massively increase the marketing, which has absolutely paid off for us. And then there's things around, we're now planning on stage 2, which is when customers are allowed back into our restaurant. So we're working on that at the moment, setting up, you know, looking at having hand sanitation stations in the restaurant, looking at making sure that where you do sit down, there's 2 metre spaces around everyone, health, you know, making sure all the staff are good to go, and putting in screens so that safety screens in front of between the customer and the staff. So a whole bunch of things that we're doing. So that's where we've had to do a short-term pivot, use that word. But yeah, the fundamental business hasn't changed. Yeah,
excellent. Look, thank you so much for putting those thoughts together for us, Grant. There's a lot of insights in there, and just fundamental business principles anyway that every business should be doing. And I think the fact that you had them, you were already operating in this way from the beginning has put you in a good position in the state of this crisis. So I think that's, is it luck? Is it good planning? It's probably a bit of both. But yeah, I think that there's, you know, some amazing information, and I hope everybody has been able to get some amazing insights to apply to their business long term and also at this time. So thank you. Yeah. Did you want to say something?
Yeah. Just last gasp from me, and then I'll leave and get on to my next call. Thanks everyone for sharing your time, and I'll just edit the slides a little bit, but keep the steps. And those steps, with what I know now, we wouldn't have changed any of those steps. We would, if it happened today, we would go through those 10 steps again. But I guess that's my final message. Thanks.
Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Bye, Grant. Awesome. So now we've got Karine, who's been sitting quietly. Thank you for your patience. Hopefully that was insightful for you as well.
Yeah, very useful.
Yeah. So it's interesting because we have a bit of a story here, which is, you know, how does a big business, you know, a bigger business, one that's more established, potentially, how have they been affected by this state, and how have they survived, and how have they pivoted? And then taking that narrative to a smaller business like yours. And whilst you do have a background in media and marketing, so I think that that's relevant to help your thinking and framing where you are today. But perhaps you can tell us a little bit more, you know, in your words, a little bit about your business, just to give everybody just some background to start, and then how you've what you've done. And I've seen, and I invited Karine today because I've seen her change her business online to an online scenario. So I found that really interesting. So if you could just talk about your journey, that would be fantastic.
Sure. So I'm a co-owner of Bump Health and Fitness. My husband just creaking down the side.
It's okay. I've had husbands, children running through the background. This is the world we live in.
It's the world we live in. First week was a get out, but now we're
yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, I'm a co-owner of Bump Health and Fitness, which is a gym fitness centre specially for pre and postnatal. So we've been around now for about 2.5 years, so still a relatively new business. We were tracking really well though, so we were all very excited. We were getting close to capacity, so we were planning in about 6 months' time. 6 months' time, celebrations would be happening because we would have reached that goal that we've been working so hard to get to. Then what kind of started to happening? So everyone started talking about this virus that started in China. Back then, even when people were talking about it not being, you know, any worse than the flu, we started to think about how we could implement some changes, which I think is really testament to how we've been able to pivot so quickly. So we have obviously a lot of mothers, we have a creche, we have pregnant women coming into our doors every day. So I feel we got a bit of a sense of that fear from them. So we pretty much, when it kind of the news broke, we lost 20% of our members, or those people put it on hold relatively quickly. So we were forced in a sense to try and put some things into place. And so in between teaching classes, in between running the business, we all, and there's 3 directors in the company, we all started to film online classes. Our motto during that time was definitely better done than perfect. We'd never been on film before. We'd never done any recording. We had to upskill very, very quickly. We couldn't afford to get a videographer in. We couldn't afford a professional edit. As I said, we were losing revenue quite quickly. So we were doing all of this pretty much in our spare time and doing as much research as we possibly could to really upskill ourselves. So that kind of paid off because when we were shut down, so we had an online program for those people. It was a bit of a retention strategy at the time for people who didn't feel comfortable coming into the club. They had the option to start watching us at home in the comfort and safety of their own home online. So when our doors are pretty much shut, and I think, you know, as many businesses out there, we had 24 hours notice. We got as many resistance bands as we possibly could purchase. And anybody that was going to stay with us, we would hand out those resistance bands in that last 24 hours. So at least they could follow it at home with some of the workouts that we were putting together for them and, you know, get a bit of weight till they had time to get their own gear. And I think dumbbells are sold out all over Australia. So quite fortunate again that we got in and did that early. And then it was really for us, I guess we're in a bit of a unique situation. So we moved into retention of our existing members and we had to bring everything that we kind of would go off on a tangent. We had to bring it back to that point. We're very unique in the situation that lots of gyms, you know, everyone was in the same situation. No one could go to a gym and exercise anymore, but we had actually a really unique offering in the market. So there weren't anyone really going out there and talking about pregnancy and exercise and postnatal. And, you know, we come from years and years of experience in that area. So it was really tempting for us to then run away and start recruiting and getting more customers and more members. But we really tried to bring it back to really thinking about retention first. And actually now we're going into a bit of a phase now for acquisition. But kind of that first few weeks or first month even after we were closed, it was really about trying to maintain those existing customers. So rewarding them with loyalty, giving them special, you know, weekly membership rates and stuff like that, really thanking them for staying with us.
You also made it, sorry, Karine, you also made it really easy for them because you thought ahead by giving them a product that you actually gave them the gift of a product so that they can follow you at home, and you made it easy for them to stay with you. So I think that was a little genius idea there.
Yeah, and we gave them the option early on, so they were comfortable with seeing our, getting our lefts and rights confused on screen and sound cutting out and all of those things in the early days, and all having a laugh about it. And community was so important for us as well. So community was something that was, when you align with what our purpose and goal was when we had a physical studio to what we have now, that's still one of the pillars. So that community, that aspect that the mums all, got to build, and those beautiful conversations and friendships that were made, we wanted to try and continue that into kind of the virtual world, which we've successfully managed to do. So I think that has been a definite strength of ours, to really keep that going through social media, through other social channels. So that's something that we're very, very proud of. It's really, really lovely to see.
Corinne. So just in terms of, obviously, Impressive is a marketing company. You have a marketing background. How does a situation like COVID-19 impact your communication strategy?
So our communication strategy went internal. So we did have advertising externally until we got a product that we wanted to take to market that, we knew the outside world wasn't going to be as forgiving for our, videos and that kind of thing until we'd upskilled ourselves. And I think we're nearly at that point now. Our marketing communication strategy was all about existing customers. So it was all about retention. So building those communities, having that one-on-one communication with them, sending them personal messages. We spent a lot of time focusing on making sure they knew how important they were to us. And we didn't look outside. Even as tempting as it was, we kept bringing it back, to keeping those people that we'd built those relationships with, and then they would be the foundation. We also work on our referral marketing. So even when we had a physical studio, our referral was about 90%. So everyone new coming into the door, we ran advertising, we ran social, but 90% of our new members came from referrals. So we knew that was another key aspect. So we really wanted to focus on that small little community that we'd built. And even still, they're probably the main source of getting referrals now are coming from that kind of baseline of what we had previously.
That's interesting, Karine. That's similar in our business as well. Obviously, the acquisition component of the business slowed really suddenly, and we were focused highly on retention and how we can service our existing customers, how we can help them get through this. We developed some packages. We were on the phone to them. We were nurturing, and still are. And then we're also looking at now phase 2 of now we've sort of stabilized that block of business. How do we move forward now when we've it feels like we need to go back and keep nurturing. I'm focused on retention in our business, so that's kind of an area of passion for me, but how do we now go back and keep that conversation going? And I think the nature of the relationships even with our clients has changed, because it's gone from a customer to a human connection relationship really suddenly. We feel like we've jolted into that relationship. And we've been, as you said, and I know you've mentioned this to me before, we've been given permission to talk to people in a different way, in a more compassionate and person-to-person way. And that I think that's a nice way to resonate your message if you're coming from a place of authenticity as well.
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely changed. So I'm in people's lounge rooms now. So there's people who didn't necessarily know me. They might not have got to one of my classes. I only taught 8 classes a week, and we had 50 classes on our timetable. But now I'm in someone's lounge room twice a week. So I'm getting lots of messages, lots of, thank yous, and I'm building that one-on-one relationship with them. And I do have that permission now on my personal socials to share that message about Bump. Where before, I'd keep them a little bit separate, but now the brands are starting to blend in this new world that we're living in. So that one-on-one, that personalization, that authenticity, like you said, is really important.
I feel like we could have another 20-minute discussion on this, and I'm just mindful of the time we are supposed to end soon. So if anybody has any questions for Corinne, could you please type them in the Q&A screen now, and we'll try to get to those.
I guess while we're waiting in that period, I do have a question, because you made a really interesting point around essentially the level of exposure that Bump now has. So historically, it's been a localized business, bricks and mortar, primarily a bricks and mortar presence. But now, essentially, you're primarily an online business, which means that your audience has just grown exponentially. So to Grant's point before, all things will pass. What is the long-term vision for Bump now? Do you think that you'll kind of move back to that localized business model, or do you think there's opportunity for expansion?
So the long-term business model for Bump was always as franchise model. So we're actually looking in the next 6 to 12 months to open up another 2. We actually had, franchise agreements in something to get into place, and looking at venues and commercial real estate for that second and third property, I guess, which is now all on hold. But I guess what this would do is going to create a larger awareness for us. So that awareness footprint, kind of Australia or globally, whatever that might look like for us, that'll be that base awareness. So we do talk about franchises. I definitely think that's in our favour, because people are it's not just going to be a local Northern Beaches, Sydney thing. It's potentially something that people are going to hear outside of our local area. So I definitely think our long-term vision stays the same. It's all about franchises, but hopefully, this might make it a little bit of an easier rollout now that people are familiar with the brand, and there is a greater awareness outside of our local community. So yeah, we'll see. Watch this space.
Fantastic. We have a couple of questions or comments. I have Ellie Dixon. She's saying lots of value here. Thank you so much for your time, Karine. And then she says she has a small business running events for associations, and she's been in business for 12 months. We've had to cancel events, which, as this is obviously across the board, this is one of the industries that's had to completely cancel. And given we are a small business, I'd love to connect with new people on how we can diversify. So she's obviously looking for ideas, any ideas on who I should be reaching out to. Thank you, Ellie, for the question. Does anybody, even Karine, can I throw, if you don't mind, at you just to share some ideas?
So something else that we did quite early on as well is we kind of sat down and we're like, we have to leverage all networks. So we already had a few social media influencers that we'd got in, so local mums with quite a large social media following. So they were kind of people that we did approach, and I think because they were so appreciative for what we've done before and they were really positive about our product, they were more than willing to go over and above in supporting us and making sure that we could, using their networks. So I think it is just really, that was something that worked for us really well early on as well. And we will continue to leverage those partnerships as we move forward and identify collaborations. So we've just done a collaboration with Iconic Sport. And again, that was through kind of one of those networks, one of those partnerships that we'd formed previously. So again, that's a great way to extend our reach and, awareness of Bump, but it's just thinking about, everyone's got them. You've got a friend of a friend of a friend, especially from a small business perspective. Everyone wants to help. No one wants to see a small business fail, particularly if there is that emotional attachment to the business. And I guess that's why we're fortunate, because we're dealing with a lot of mums where we were their lifeline for a period of time. Like that was what got them out of the house and got them out of their, mummy world, gave them that hour break, and they'll do anything to help us because they're so grateful for that time. So just really having a think about if there is anybody that you can approach to help you, endorse you or talk positive about your product.
That's great advice. And I think you could also argue that as you said, there is a lot of support out there for small businesses. Don't be afraid if there's a clear partnership connection to reach out to some of the bigger brands who your brand could aspire to or connect with, or there's, they are running a lot of programs now where they are supporting small businesses. So think about who you could potentially partner with. And also we're an example of somebody who's moved moved online as well. So this webinar series, this is what the fourth in, this was a pivot for us. This was something, how could we provide an additional value? How can we educate our clients? How can we find a way to connect with them and help them during this time? So that's exactly how this webinar series was born. And now this is evolving with our fourth one to bringing real businesses in and talking and having a conversation. So hopefully that helps. I'm mindful again, it's 10:46. I've got a couple more questions. Have we got time for one more, guys? Thank you. Yeah, okay, one more. Thanks so much for sharing, Karine. This is Pete Nichols. Further to Ellie's question, who or at least what type of specialists did you find were the best trusted advisors through your changes? Who did you work with?
So in the sense of, look, we had us. We didn't have time to go out there and seek advice from the external. I think we had enough business acumen between the three directors that we had to just sit and brainstorm and think it out. Again, we didn't have the finance available to go out and speak to other agencies or anybody else. So we just had to deal with the problem that was in front of us the best that we absolutely could, and just use kind of any information that we could find online. Just really went out there and did the best that we could in the situation that we had.
And to bring Grant's point in, it's done is better than perfect.
Absolutely. As
We're
cringeworthy as it is
human. We can.
sometimes.
we're human. We're all trying to move very quickly and adapt. And I think there's an allowance there for not being perfect. I mean, you know, as we said, we've got kids running across the screen. What is normal these days? It's completely different. The needs have changed. The level of understanding has changed. I've got one more, and then we're going to have to close off. This is actually a self-plug from Nathan Morel. I'm not sure the name of the business. He is a client. Sorry, Nathan, if I'm not familiar. We do have a large portfolio. Here is he. The IT department. Okay, thank you. What's he saying? As one of Impressive's customers, we are helping businesses set up a platform and streaming services for exactly that scenario. So happy to chat with anyone about what that looks like offline with that person if you wish to connect. So if anyone wishes to connect with Nathan, just let us know, get in contact with Impressive and we will connect the two of you. Likewise, thank you so much, Karine, for your time today. It has been absolutely incredibly valuable for our listeners. Mark, thank you for your time too. And I feel like there was a lot more content that Mark and I wanted to talk about today. We've run out of time, but I'm really glad that we were able to focus on these real businesses and real case studies. And if there are any questions, if anybody wants any support, is interested in joining the conversation, please do reach out to us. Our email address, or just if you could send either to Mark or myself, or if you don't have our email addresses, just hello@impressive.com.au. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you all soon. Take care and have a great day. Thanks, Karine.
Thank you. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.